Imagine opening your inbox and finding a personal email from Abraham Lincoln, written in perfect modern English, referencing Wi-Fi, and signed with his name. You'd spot the fake instantly. But in the ancient world, that kind of forgery circulated for centuries, and the people believed it. Around 250 CE, letters appeared claiming to be a personal exchange between Jesus of Nazareth and the Syrian king. Almost nobody questioned them for hundreds of years. So let's start with what pseudepigraphy means and why it was everywhere. The word comes from two Greek roots, pseudis, meaning false, and epigraphy, meaning inscription or writing. Pseudepigraphy is the practice of publishing a text under a name that is not the real author's. This was not a fringe activity. It was standard practice across the ancient world. Christians did it, Jews did it, pagans did it, Greek philosophers did it. From the Mediterranean to Mesopotamia, writing under someone else's name was one of the most common literary practices in antiquity. To understand ancient literature, you have to understand this. The best way to see pseudepigraphy in action is through a specific case. Around 250 CE, a set of letters surfaced claiming to be correspondence between King Abgar of Edessa, a real Syrian king, and Jesus of Nazareth. In the letters, Abgar writes to Jesus, begging him to come to Edessa and heal him. Jesus writes back, declining the invitation but promising to send the disciple after his ascension. And the church historian Eusebius recorded these letters in the early 300s. For centuries, Christians treated them as authentic, but scholars have identified three red flags. Red flag 1, language. The letters are written in polished literary Greek. Jesus was an Aramaic-speaking peasant artisan from rural Galilee, almost certainly not capable of this level of Greek composition. Red flag 2, theological echoes. Jesus' reply contains the phrase, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe," a near direct quote from the Gospel of John, chapter 20, verse 29, written decades after Jesus' death. Red flag 3, anachronistic fame. The letters assume Jesus was internationally famous during his lifetime. He wasn't. He was one of many itinerant healers and prophets in first century Palestine. The motive here wasn't malice. A 3rd century Christian scribe, worshipping Jesus as divine Lord, would naturally assume such correspondence must have existed. Writing it was an act of piety, and this pattern repeated across traditions. Fabricated letters linked the Apostle Paul with the Stoic philosopher Seneca. Letters circulated under the names of Cynic philosophers. Even Plato, virtually no scholar believes all of his transmitted letters are authentic. Pseudepigraphy was universal. Here's where most people get confused. Pseudepigraphy is not the same as anonymity, and mixing them up leads to real misunderstandings. An anonymous text makes no authorship claim at all. The 4 Gospels are the key example. The original manuscripts of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John never say, "I, Matthew, wrote this," or "I, John, wrote this." Those names were added later by scribes. Right? The letter to the Hebrews is another case. Right? It never claims to be by Paul or anyone else. A pseudonymous text is different. It actively claims a specific author who didn't write it. The Abgar-Jesus letters explicitly present themselves as written by Jesus and King Abgar. Right? These are fundamentally different categories. This distinction matters. Calling the Gospels forgeries is technically incorrect. They never claimed an author, so there's no false claim. Calling the Abgar letters anonymous is also wrong. They make explicit authorship claims. The categories are different, and using the wrong one distorts the evidence. Keep this distinction sharp. It will serve you well. Now, how did pseudepigraphy work in practice? Start with the material reality. No printing press existed. Every text was copied by hand, one letter at a time. Ancient manuscripts used block capital letters in what's called scriptio continua, continuous script with no spaces between words and often no punctuation. Look at this example. The letters Godisnow, Here. without spaces that can be read as God is nowhere or God is now here. Every single copy of every text was an act of interpretation. No two surviving New Testament manuscripts are exactly alike. In this environment, introducing a pseudepigraphic text was remarkably easy. A scribe had 4 main options: copy the text multiple times and circulate it directly, claim to have discovered it in a monastery library, present it to a bookseller as a found text, or insert it into the margins or blank pages of another manuscript being compiled. All 4 paths led to the same result. The text entered circulation, got copied and recopied, and within a generation could be accepted as authentic. No printing press, no copyright, no ISBN, no way to verify. Now that we know what pseudepigraphy is, how it worked, and how it differs from anonymity, what do we do with this? Here's a simple decision tree you can apply to any ancient text. First, does the text claim an author? If no, it's anonymous, like the Gospels or the letter to the Hebrews. If yes, does the claimed author match scholarly consensus? If yes, it's authentic, like Paul's undisputed letters. If no, check for red flags. Anachronistic language, theological echoes of later works, implausible historical assumptions. If those red flags are present, the text is pseudepigraphic. Let's test it. The Gospel of Mark. Does it claim an author? No. The name was added later. It's anonymous. The Abgar-Jesus letters. Do they claim an author? Yes, Jesus and King Abgar. Does that match scholarly consensus? No. Red flags. Literary Greek Johannine echoes, anachronistic fame, verdict, pseudepigraphic. The framework works. Understanding pseudepigraphy changes how we read the Bible and all ancient literature. It doesn't make these texts worthless. The Abgar-Jesus letters tell us enormous amounts about 3rd century Syrian Christianity, what those communities believed, valued, and wanted to preserve. Pseudepigraphic texts are invaluable historical sources. Ancient pseudepigraphy wasn't about lying, it was about legacy, honoring a great teacher by continuing to speak in their voice. The question isn't whether it happened, it's what we do with that knowledge.